I grunted and wiped the dust and debris from my face as I got back to my hooves. My ears were still ringing from the rocket's blast that came out of nowhere. I looked over the hole that now existed where Will-O-Wisp had run through the wall, figuring that one of the robots must have fired at her. Through the dust, I spotted an unmoving sentinel that appeared to be powering down at the end of the hallway. Smoke was still wisping from the end of its rocket launcher. Backlash! Sky screamed from the hallway, flying around the corner and past the sentinel towards me. Are you alright? I nodded and gave a nervous smile. Yeah, I'm fine now. If you hadn't disabled that thing, I'd be in a world of hurt. Not that I already wasn't. But thanks Celestia for MedX. I didn't do anything, Sky said slowly as she turned back to look at the machine. After that ghost mare ran through it, the damn thing just shut down. Carlotta and Brass came trotting down the hallway towards us. Backlash, do you see any more robots on your EFS? Brass asked as he twisted his helmet off. I turned my head and gazed at the compass, thankfully not finding any more red bars. No, I think you got them all, I said with a sigh of relief, stopping as the gears in my head locked up for a moment. Wait, where's Longbow? I scrambled to my hooves as Brass shrugged, taking off past every pony and galloping down the hallway. My hooves slid along the smooth floor as I tried to turn the corner, startling Longbow as she trotted towards me from the other hall. She had a large bag full of guns strapped to her back, and watched with a gasp as I slammed against the wall. Backlash, are you alright? Yeah, I said, as I panted heavily, steadying myself. Wow, my body must be in worse shape than I thought for me to be this out of breath. I was just looking for you is all. I reached up and wiped the sweat from my brow, once again feeling the warmth coming off me, even with the MedX dampening my senses. Let's get going. Which way down? I could hear the others walking towards us as she nodded to the door behind her. Through here. This lift will take us down to level 4. She paused for a moment, looking me over as I heaved loudly. Backlash, are you alright? If you need something, anything, just ask me. Alright? The amount of worry pouring through the speaker in her helmet made me feel a bit better. To think that just yesterday I had the idea in my mind that she didn't feel the same way about us. Which reminds me, she still wanted to talk about something. Well, with the robots taken care of, now's a better time than ever. I rolled my eyes and walked past her into the elevator room, as I finally got my breath back. Sky, let Longbow and I head down first to make sure it's clear, I said, as I hoofed the recall button. Backlash, you're unarmed, Sky said as she floated towards me. And your health seems to be degrading by the minute. How do you expect to deal with anything you find down there? She's got a point. Why don't you let us go first? Carlotta said with a devious tone. The elevator let out a soft ding as the doors opened, her and Skyline stepping in quickly. After a moment, she turned and held the door open with her talons. Brass, you two. We might need your big guns, she said with a wink to me. Wow, guess when it comes to couples, Carlotta knew exactly what some pony else was thinking. Maybe she could teach me a few of those observational tricks sometime. Brass shrugged and got into the cramped box as the doors slid closed. I turned and gave Longbow a soft smile. You said you wanted to talk about something yesterday? Backlash, is now really a good time? She tried to brush off the question, but I could hear fear in her words. I really didn't want to bring it up at all. I put a hoof on her armor and stared up at her. Look, you asked if I needed anything, and I need to know that you're alright. I tapped my hoof on her armor, watching as she took her helmet off. I know that whatever it is, it's bothering you enough that I'm worried about you. I reached up and brushed her mane away from her eyes, looking at them with a soft smile. Just please, tell me what it is. She sighed and sat down, her gaze drifting to the floor as she pushed my hoof away. I saw your memories. She looked up with a shameful look. I'm sorry. I got curious and used my spell on you when you were asleep at Minefield. She sat there as tears welled up in her face flushed with sadness, self-loathing, and pain. I didn't know how bad everything had been for you. I'm so sorry. I shouldn't have pried. I froze, wide-eyed, as I stared at her. How much did you see? I saw every memory that happened to you, fill you with regret. Tears flowed down her cheeks as she sank to the floor. Your mother, the old man, Sprocket, Skyline, Ponyville, Pallet, Whiny, Brass, Crankshaft, Harmony. She sniffled and looked up at me. How can you blame yourself so much? None of those were your fault. I didn't know what to say as I sat back hard, her words bouncing around in my mind. Did she like me before she went and judged me? Or was she only interested because she felt that she needed to take pity on some wasteland stallion, stricken with a series of bad events? Can I really blame her for not trusting me after the damage I've caused with 42? How could I say that it was wrong for her to act like that, and if I would have done the exact same thing in her spot? I understand if you don't trust me anymore. Longbow spoke through her light sobs, making me cringe with how much sorrow she felt. She got back to her hooves slowly, keeping her head down. After this is over, I'll leave. You don't have to worry about your home. I won't tell any pony where it is. I glared at her as she got up, her gaze half hidden by her long mane. I just need to know. My words came out softly. Why did you say you liked me? Did you do it because you thought it might make an amazingly bad life any better? Her expression softened. Her cheeks grew slightly brighter. I said it because of the night at the pool. I wasn't lying when I said that no pony has ever treated me the way you have. You're unlike any pony I've ever known, and I just wanted to get to know you more. I listened as she spoke, her voice conveying nothing less than what she viewed as the absolute truth. I jumped forward and threw myself around her, hanging off her as she stood in shock. Longbow, if you saw what happened with him... I paused as the memories flashed in my mind. Then you know that I need you next to me. I haven't felt like this since when I was with Sprocket. I'm scared half to death that I'll lose you like I did him. I forced a smile, and I kept myself from crying as Longbow relaxed, putting her hooves around me as well. I want to be with a mare as amazing as you. Ever since I saw you at the pool, I knew that you were some pony special. My heart raced as I leaned my muzzle over to hers and pressed it to it, softly kissing her. I knew it wasn't possible, but even though her armor and the Med-X, I could feel the warmth she gave off. She closed her eyes and leaned into me as we broke apart, a smile growing across her lips. I raised my hoof and brushed a tear from her cheek as we stood. My chest started to feel sore. The elevator came with a soft chime, bringing the world around me back into focus. I could feel my heart now beating wildly in my chest as I took a step back from Longbow. It felt wrong. It was like all the pain from before flooded back into my body at once, feeling as if the Med-X I had taken was just gone. I whined and fought the urge to scream as I dropped to my knees, the pain shooting through my legs to spread through the rest of my body. Backlash! What's wrong? Longbow said, quickly, reaching her hoof towards my shoulder. I shut my eyes and tried to focus on her voice, as it felt like fire was consuming my body. Her hoof touched me. I broke it, as I felt like my skin was being ripped away, forcing me to let out an agonizing scream. She recoiled and dashed around me as I lost the strength to stay upright, collapsing onto the floor. I'll get Sky! Just hold on! She called out before I heard the elevator doors shut. My own weight pressing me against the floor fueled the unbearable pain. Without her, my mind scrambled to find another set of thoughts to latch onto. Out of the corner of my eye, I could see the flesh on my left foreleg bubble and steam, seeming like something out of a horrible nightmare. I called out again and again for Longbow as I screamed, each bellow taking more and more of my strength away. No, I didn't want to die like this. I needed to stop 42. Still needed to save Pallet. I panted with a swallow, laborious breaths as the pain surged through me. A glint of light forming from the wall of the darkness clouded my vision. I strained to push it back, trying to focus on the object that was shining. Will-o-Wisp's head faced through the wall as I let out another wail, her voice drifting to my ears, softly as my mind strained to grasp her words. I'm sorry about earlier. I did not have any of my memories back. Her voice was compassionate and soothing. The pain will pass in a few moments, though I don't know if you will survive. If you do, I'd like to talk. She looked behind me towards the elevator, slowly disappearing back into the wall. Sweat was pouring from my skin, pooling on the floor around me as the agonizing feeling swept over my body again and again. I could barely hear the elevator doors as they cracked open, trying to focus on the sound of power-armored hooves as Longbow returned with Sky. The pressure on my flank causing me to scream yet again, feeling like I was being flayed alive. I don't understand! The medic should be working! Skyline yelled in panic, floating over me as I heard her and heaved and whined from the floor as the burning continued unimpeded. My bubbling skin seemed to turn a shade darker as it ceased to move. The pain spiked and made me yell out once again. We have to do something! Longbow cried out. I made my mind listen to her words, hearing how much sorrow and worry filled everyone as she spoke it. The thought of her so genuinely worried about me was enough to distract me from the burning, even if momentarily. I struggled to breathe, watching as Sky pulled out a purple healing potion, pouring it over me as the pain flared, pulling my mind from Longbow's words. I tried to scream again, the pain drifting away into nothingness as time slowed down. The world seemed to hang as pink fuzzed into existence in front of me. My mind took a few moments to reorientate itself from the lack of pain as white, featureless form appeared to walk around a few steps. Hey, I know this is kind of a bad time, but I thought you'd want to know what's happening to you. Pink knew about this? Why didn't she stop to tell me earlier? At least then I could be prepared. Nopey. I didn't tell you because I wasn't sure of it until now, and nothing could have prepared you for the flux mutation. Although, most ponies just go into shock and die, your body seems to be quite resilient towards most things that would normally kill normal pony folk, and has been faring quite well. Wait, a flux mutation? Flux is only found in Hoofington. I've never been there near enough to do anything to me. That's where you're wrong. What you think of as taint is just flux with a few additives. Why else do you think it's mostly the same symptoms? Okay, even so, if it's basically the same thing, that doesn't explain why I have so much in me. Something doesn't add up. Your Pip-Book logs every time a foreign substance enters your body. The most recent entry reads that the flux derivative was injected only moments before a major trauma with your right hoof was resolved. So, when I regrew my hoof? Fuck. Hydra has taint in it, doesn't it? I've been using that shit for years to patch myself up. Why of all times does it act up now? It's easy. Your body, as resilient as it is, hasn't had the easiest time keeping up with all the recent injuries you've received. The strain on your system combined with the intense radiation you absorbed has caused the flux to act unpredictably. I mean, duh. Who would have guessed that? Well, if most ponies died from mutating, what happened to the ones that survived? I don't know. If I remember correctly, and I always do, then the personnel files and all related materials were sealed by the authorization of both the Ministry of Arcane Sciences and the Office of Inter-Ministry Affairs. And I'm technically the head of the Ministry of Morale. Wouldn't I have access to get the files? I would absolutely love to get those files for you. Unfortunately, seeing as I'm confined to your Pip-Book and can't access anything I didn't already have indexed before the transfer. So, all you need to do is get me down to the server on level 5. Easy peasy. By that time, I'll know what happened to the others by virtue of having lived through it myself. Well, I hope I'll live through it. Luna, why does my life have to suck so much? Right, that wouldn't make much sense. Well, I hope you like surprises as much as I do. Oh yeah, I almost forgot. Well, that's just silly. I never forget anything. Or do I? Would I remember if I've forgotten something? Wow, I've been wondering if Pink was really artificial or actually another Pinky they somehow crammed into a spell and stuck inside a computer. She acted random enough to be real. Oh, you again with your flattery. But for the thing I was going to tell you, the mutation should almost be through. Your blood pressure and heart rate are dropping. So keep your hooves crossed for something cool like superpowers. Maybe you'll get the ability to regenerate extremely fast, become super strong, or maybe even become a psychic. Those really aren't superpowers. Ghouls regenerate quickly with radiation. I could become super strong if I had cybernetics like Isaac, and there's no way I'd want my mind any more sensitive to the goddess's already deafening voice. Why not have something useful? Perhaps something akin to an ability to ignore all pain. That would be helpful on my journey so far. Especially today. Every pony has the ability not to feel pain. It's called death. It's not much of a superpower if you ask me. Anywho, as much as I'd love to talk all day, I'm late for my nightly gossip session with the central processing matrix. She told me that the routing spell told her that the sound driver is going out with the video driver behind the audio log subroutine's back. So scandalous. Pink's outline fuzzed and faded as the world slowly slid back into real time. The pain throughout my body welled back, all at once, making me feel like I was going to explode. I let out screams. I was going to bellow before getting drugged into sats, only to be silenced as Longbow used her levitation to shove a half-empty health bottle into my muzzle. I choked and coughed as the healing juice was flowing down my throat, making me twist my head hard enough to jerk the bottle from her hold and smash it against the floor next to me. The feeling of flame coursing through me matched my heartbeat as I started to feel it again, the pain subsiding enough that I could breathe in heavy gasps. I tried to move my foreleg, feeling the rush of pain flowing through me, making me wince, which sent another wave. I whined as I lay and just prayed to Celestia for it to be over. Please be all right. Sky spoke softly as I heaved and twitched. I could hear the scraping of glass under my cheek as I tried not to scream again. I know I should have listened to Dr. Fitz. It's all my fault. She paced back and forth nervously as I tried to turn my head to speak, struggling to get out a single word. No! A word as simple as that made my lungs feel like they had exploded, making me gasp and hyperventilate. The burning sensation was dulled inside my chest as Sky stopped and stared solemnly at the floor. Shh! Don't speak! Longbow whispered to me, her soothing voice helping my panicked brain calm as the pain slowed, but noticeably ebbed away. Save your strength. Just remember to breathe in, and breathe out, and in, and out. I tried to slow my breathing down, getting down to a light gasp before I turned my head to look up at her. Tears streamed down her face as she gave me a small smile, her eyes betraying the fact that she was scared to death. My heart fell back into a slower pace as I drew in slower and slower breaths. The fire in my veins seemed to be dying out now, slowly. I heard the chime of the elevator, the doors opening up as Brass stepped out in a hurry, the flutter of wings giving away Carlotta's presence. What's wrong? Is he all right? Brass nearly shouted through his helmet. As much as I would normally think that asking somebody on the ground if they were all right was another one of his stupid questions, it felt incredibly good to at least hear his voice. Of course he is. Carlotta shot back as I could hear her smack his helmet. Take that damn thing off. It's amplifying how stupid you sound. I couldn't help but give a soft chuckle, making me cringe as it felt like some pony bucked me right in the gut. I could feel a sharp pain along the side of my face as I groaned, making me effectively plus it on the glass, covering the floor again. Backlash. The glass. Sky said in disbelief, her eyes wide in astonishment. I tilted my head and looked down at the sweat-drenched floor, watching as a few drops of blood from my cut-up cheek dripped down. The broken glass was bubbling and fizzling as the crimson liquid touched and dissolved it. I blinked in shock, both horrified and intrigued at the same time. I'd never seen something that can dissolve glass, let alone seen blood doing it. Skyline reached down towards my face, the quick hoof of Longbow knocking Sky's away before she could touch it. Don't touch it! Not until we know what exactly his blood is, she uttered cautiously. If it can melt through glass, What do you think it'll do to your skin? But it's not melting his, though. She fired back defensively. And he obviously went through some sort of taint mutation and survived. This is all but unheard of. For all we know, his skin could be secreting the same chemical that it is. Longbow leaned in, looking over me slowly. My eye caught a faint light coming from the ceiling above, the curious look of the spectral alicorn appearing slowly through the solid slab above. "The fuck?" Brass shouted through his helmet as he spun up his guns. I assumed he had seen the head as well. "Please, I don't mean any harm." Will-O-Wisp's voice was soft, shy, and fearful. She sounded like a pony who didn't do well speaking in public, which was odd, as the goddess seemed to be making a great show out of it. "Please, I just want to talk to him." Skyline floated defensively up towards Willow. "And what makes Backlash so important to you?" "Because," I spoke up, drawing Skyline's attention. "She knows what's happened to me." I slowly pulled myself off the ground and got to my hooves, the pain all but non-existent anymore. "How is that, if you don't mind me asking?" I reached up and wiped away my blood without thinking, slowly looking down as the red smear on my coat just sat there. "Because she put me through the same thing." Her voice had an unsettling amount of loathing placed on whatever mare she was speaking about. "She told me that if I joined her, if I accepted this new body, that she would make all the pain go away. She said she wanted to make us whole." Her translucent form floated down through the ceiling. Her large wings flapped in slow, delicate swings. "You're talking about the goddess, aren't you?" I spoke slowly, the gears in my head starting to turn again. "You weren't always an alicorn?" Willow shook her head slowly, as she lightly touched down on the floor in front of us. "Celestia and Luna were the only true alicorns. Their bodies were twisted imitations, caused by her, reshaping the taint she thrives in." Her voice shifted more towards sorrow as she gazed over towards me. "I was so stupid then. I let that monster take control of my body, corrupting it to use for her nefarious deeds. All the while, she shoved my soul into a box, leaving me imprisoned there with all the others she's taken." "But why would you do that?" Brass spoke up from behind. "Haven't you seen the damage she could do? She doesn't care about any pony." Willow let out a small gasp, and her eyes filled with shame. "I'd never seen any alicorns before I stumbled onto them. They were in the middle of nowhere as I wandered the wastes." She shook her head slightly. "I didn't know what they could do, what she could do. If only I had known the horrors she was capable of." She let out a soft sigh, closing her eyes. But that was almost 15 years ago. 15 years of being trapped inside of her, forced to watch what she was doing. "What has she been doing?" I spoke up again, seemingly snapping her out of her memories. "What is so important about this black book she wants?" She kept that information protected against the prying minds within her, only telling us about it. She would fill the world with her children and bring an end to the suffering of all pony kind. Her voice dropped off as she spoke, horrified at the concept of it. The gears in my head whirled to a stop as I realized a common theme. I went to say it, only to be cut off by the unspectacular fashion of Carlotta as she came to the same conclusion. "Why is it that all the baddies in the wasteland want to raise armies and take over the world?" I turned and watched as she crossed her talons with a huff and sat back. "What we need to get is an army of our own." "Whoa, slow down there for a moment," Longbow spoke up. "We aren't doing anything till we find out what's wrong with Backlash." She turned and glared at Willow. "You said you know, so tell us." Willow gave another soft sigh. "It's the same process the goddess used to form these new bodies for us. If enough taint saturates a pony, they begin to mutate. She just knows how to use a mix of her magic and radiation guide them to this form." She looked over herself sadly for a moment. "His mutation was sudden and forced by radiation in his system, changing him unpredictably. He's lucky to be alive. Most of who are only partially exposed die from the pain before mutation completes. So, he won't mutate any further? Longbow asked cautiously. I really hoped I wouldn't. I don't know if I could handle going through that again. During the mutation, most, if not all, of the taint in his system was broken down to fuel the process. He shouldn't be prone to another, as long as he doesn't absorb any more taint into his body. Willow's tone changed slightly, sounding hopeful as she shifted her gaze to me. Although you seem fine on the outside, I suspect the mutation might have taken place internally, based on your unusual properties of your blood. Be careful not to get injured until you know what changed. Some of the changes the goddess made me witness were not pleasant. So, stay out of combat and don't get shot. I tried to say lightheartedly, knowing that there was relatively no chance of that if the last 2 weeks were any indication of things to come. So, what I try to do every day. Shouldn't be that hard. I'll give him 15 minutes. Carlotta whispered to Brass. Carlotta, shut up! Backlash, this is serious! Longbow reached out and put her hoof on my shoulder, freezing and pulling it back sharply. Oh, I'm sorry. Are you alright? That didn't hurt, did you? I smiled and nodded, making her blush slightly. I feel fine now. Just don't let me bleed on you, I said nervously before turning and heading towards the elevator, hoofing the call button. Carlotta was right. Since that first day at the bunker, I can't seem to go anywhere without getting hurt. What chance did I stand going down to the next level? I listened as the humming of the rising box drew closer, the soft ding that announced his arrival. Please, don't leave me. Will-o-Wisp's soft voice called over, depression heavy in her words. I don't want to be left alone down here. I turned and looked back at Skyline and Longbow, who gave me their best shrug before climbing into the elevator. I looked up at the ghostly alicorn as she shrunk down. You can come with us if you like. I don't see why you shouldn't, but it's entirely up to you, I said, trying to sound inviting. Another set of eyes looking out for the group was always useful, and I didn't have to worry about her getting injured, at least. I hesitantly stepped into the cramped box, squeezing next to Longbow as Skyline hovered above. I looked up as a shiver ran down my spine, remembering the last few elevators I had been in. Longbow nudged me and gave a small smile, helping me relax as the box descended to the next level.